All right, two bits of news in the gaming world I want to talk about this week. The first involves Naughty Dog updating, maybe even to some fixing The Last of Us Part 2. So this is interesting, and I'm going to do something here that is, I guess, not popular on the internet right now. At least, current age, people don't really give Naughty Dog too much credit, but credit where credit is due here. I think this new update to The Last of Us Part 2 is really cool. Is it a massive thing? No, but I did want to actually talk about it. So this is the chronological experience. This came as an update to The Last of Us Part 2, like an update that also just added like some bug fixes and tweaks and stuff like that. But this is a whole new game mode that enables you to play through the game in chronological order. And look, I think, hear me out, a lot of people hate The Last of Us Part 2. A lot of people love The Last of Us Part 2. I still like the first game better, and I get some of the narrative criticisms, but I do think either way, I think this is a cool idea and a cool way to support a game post-launch that I think should be encouraged, especially when it's something like this, that it's free. It should be encouraged because it's creative. And yeah. And again, I think also, like, however you feel about The Last of Us Part 2, I think most of us can agree, and I didn't really make another video about this, but I think most of us can agree that season 2 of the show showed that, like, you can screw up this narrative. This narrative is complicated and there's a lot to it and it can be bungled. I think season 2 kind of bungled it and did not maximize on that storytelling. And then to people who don't like The Last of Us Part 2, you can argue that it can actually get worse. And I think some of what season 2, the show, proved is that, like, order of events and everything like that is such a tightly constructed thing in the video game that, you know, it can absolutely really collapse. And I think that a chronological mode here lets you kind of experience the story in a different way that, you know, kind of makes you really get what they were doing with how events were placed throughout the story. Now, I don't think this is like a one-to-one perfect telling of the story just because of like the way information is revealed and stuff like that. But I have watched a significant playthrough of this. I haven't got to play it for myself yet, but it just seems really interesting. And I think it's really interesting in terms of, like, for the people that were pissed that Joel died right away, you get a significant bit more of Joel because the game was so heavily flashback focused that now all those flashbacks are front loaded. So the game is structured differently in a lot of ways that I just think is really interesting. But again, to go beyond The Last of Us, like, I think this is something that a lot of games should do. Now, granted, not a ton of games are this narratively complex or this intertwined with so many flashbacks or anything like that, but there are definitely a fair few story games that I think could, you know, have a cool mode like this. And again, like, some people will say, like, it fixes The Last of Us Part 2 or something like that, but I think ultimately as a way to get a second meal out of a game. I love replaying games, but if I had more opportunities like this where I could play a game and then play it again and experience it in a totally different sequence, I don't know. I like that. That kind of reminds me to me of, like, the old days of, like, the, you know, the Leon and Claire playthroughs, but obviously way more complex than that. When video game releases slow down, like right now I'm playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 for videos, but, like, when video game releases slow down because I already own this game, I would be excited to jump in and fully play through it to genuinely see, does the way it's told now help or hinder? You know, with the original game and things split up between timelines and things going around, did that help? Did that amplify surprises and revelations in the plot? Or would it be better to see it all unfold chronologically? Because essentially you get a little bit more of a direct build. You start out with Abby as just kind of like a non-revengey person. You start off with Ellie as a non-revengey person, and you see that progression directly from 0 to 60. I don't know. I just think that's cool. And they did put some work into it, like just seeing how some of the earlier sequences play out and, like, when the title card drops and, like, when the opening credits and stuff drops. It's cool that this has worked out this way, and it seems like Naughty Dog collaborated with Nixes, the people who did the PC port, and they do a lot of PlayStation PC ports. So it seems like that was like a support thing to get this going. And yeah, I don't know. Again, I just thought it was interesting because I think that content like this and additions to games like this and adding more value to a game like this for free to the player should be something that should be commended. Personally, like, I would like to see games that I like more have these types of features added, but I think specifically for The Last of Us Part 2, just because of how the plot was originally structured, just very interesting. Now, again, welcome to Two Things. I do this every Wednesday. I talk about two specific news stories in the gaming world that I want to dive deep into. On Game Ranks, on the Friday news show, I give you all the news. Here, I like to just kind of talk about some things I find interesting. The other bit of news this week, of course, is the Game Pass debate, the big conversation online. Maybe you've read articles. Is Game Pass profitable? Is Game Pass operating at a loss for Xbox? Is Game Pass just a problem for the entire industry? So a lot of this conversation comes from original Arcane head, the studio founder, Rafael Colantonio. He questioned the whole Game Pass model publicly, kind of suggesting that it could hurt the industry as a whole. He said it was kind of like the elephant in the room. And this isn't like a new argument. You have seen some developers and just gaming news fans express skepticism, sentiment, stuff like this about this, because I'm even, you think about it in terms of like, yes, it's the Netflix for games, and like think about Netflix and how that's done movies and movie development, and how Netflix funds a lot of movies that I find kind of forgettable. Like that aside, that whole conversation kind of also spurred some journalism, some investigation into what the deal is with Game Pass, with journalist Christopher Dring behind the game business initially reporting that turns out it was all a lie, and that apparently Xbox is operating this all at a loss. But after that created a firestorm. The less exciting story, it's like the correction to a story, the correction of wrong information never pops off as much as that initial thing, but I think it's important to talk about. There was a kind of retraction issued. Christopher Dring on social media said, I need to clarify something. Xbox Game Pass is profitable, even when you factor in the lost sales for its first-party teams. Sources who would know have told me. Sources have reached out to tell me that even when you include the lost revenue associated with first-party games, not just unit sales, but microtransactions, Game Pass is still profitable. There are still questions to this, of course. There's been a lot of debate, and Christopher Dring also replying to certain people with him just saying, hey, this is just what Microsoft has told me, or Xbox has told me, which that, of course, is one thing, believe it from the horse's mouth, or not, because they could spin it. Either way, it's been an interesting conversation for the sake of like the love of the game, or, the news world, the business world. But for me personally, as a consumer, I don't understand how corporate accounting works. They could do whatever they got to do. I think Game Pass has worked well for a lot of people to spend not a lot of money and get access to a lot more games. And a lot of games have been funded by seemingly the big subscription revenues of Game Pass. But is there an argument that it is stagnating the traditional model, whether it's the distribution model, the consumer model, the development model? Yes, absolutely. I think that's definitely more for another video. Either way, I don't care. I just want to play games. I hope Microsoft can at least continue to make money to fund new games being made. Of course, they're closing a lot of studios. We talked about that last week. And part of that news was apparently them closing a lot of studios because they want to funnel way more money in a very short period of time into development of AI and Microsoft Copilot and stuff like that, which to me is a sign of the times and how AI is going to take everything over in a lot of ways. But this kind of comes because people connecting the dots, correlating essentially the fact that they announced plans in January to invest $80 billion into AI infrastructure. So yes, Microsoft and Xbox are cutting back, to strengthen them moving forward, of course, like from the corporate speak statement put out there. But also, yeah, they're trimming the fat while also dumping a ton of money into AI infrastructure and chasing that. Again, some of this stuff, the business talk, is above my pay grade. I think a lot of how things have been unfolding across a lot of the industry lately have been disappointing, so I guess I can leave it there with that. No positive way to end this other than as a side little bonus thing. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, I am enjoying it. Career mode in 4 being missing is disappointing. There's a couple of little things here and there that if you're a hardcore fan, you will nitpick, you will not like. But ultimately, I'm having a good time with these levels again, and I think the 3 new levels that they made are fantastic. But I will have a whole separate dedicated video for that game, the goods and the bads, and also before you buy on Game Ranks as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But I gotta run back to work. Thank you for watching. Just getting caught up on some quick news here today. I'm here every Wednesday, but I put out other videos randomly. Got a Death Stranding 2-1 coming soon. Finally time to dive more deep into that game. But yeah, for now, that's it. Let me know what you think about what we talked about. Clicking the like button helps me. I'm just talking about stuff I love or find interesting. But that's it. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games. Pizza's on me. See ya.